Here we go. Good
Got it.
morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to the Slang of Ages podcast. Today is a special treat for me. Of course, you know that I love Toto. I've seen him a zillion times, and I'm lucky enough to have the vocalist for two of my favorite Toto albums, Joseph Williams. Joseph, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you today.
I know you're busy. You're about to hit the road with Toto, aren't you?
Yeah, we start rehearsals. We've already had a couple of vocal rehearsals and going over a few of the newer songs that we're putting in the set. And then next week we start the full-blown rehearsals, and then the following week we're out there.
I know I asked Dennis Atlas this question last year, and he kind of laughed at it, and you can laugh too. What surprises can we expect from a new Toto 2026 concert tour?
Well, this first tour is a lot of fun for us because we get to do our long form show. So that's why we call it an evening with Toto, which is um excuse me, allows us to stretch out a little bit just musically, but also to sort of banter back and forth with the audience and with each other and stuff. And when you've got a guy like Steve Lukather, you can count on some interesting humor, of various types, going on through the evening. So that's a lot of fun. We really have just as much fun up on stage as hopefully the audience does too. So there'll be a lot of that. A lot of, like I said, stretching with some solo stuff, and you can see the brilliance of these musicians and everything. Oftentimes I say I have the best job. I mean, I play the piano, but I don't play in the show. I'm just sort of wandering, with the exception of a few little things. But I have the best job because I get to wander around the stage and watch and listen to these incredible musicians, going nuts, and it reminds me of when I was a kid and when I met Luke for the first time. We all thought he was just the most brilliant, you're the fastest guitar player in the world, that kind of thing. And so I get to, and I'm 65 years old. I still get to do that, it's a great job in that way. Really is.
Wow. So you've been with Toto. Well, your first tenure was with a wonderful Fahrenheit album back in 1986. And then my favorite Toto album, I'll admit this, my favorite Toto album is the seventh one. And your presence is all over there. So many great songs on there. But you came back in 2010 and did a bunch of tours with them. And then you worked with CJ Vanston on Toto 14. And then you did another, and really the last studio Toto album, so to speak. Old is New in 2018, which was wonderful. But between all that, you have been extremely busy. I mean, you've had 11, I think 11, 10 or 11 solo albums. And I was listening to this again, if you could see this, and you're
Sure.
all over this. This is
Yeah.
just when I talked to Paige a few years ago about it, it's just a wonderful album. And then this, working
Yep.
with the great Bill Champlin and Peter uh
Freed set.
Freestyle. Yeah. And you've worked with him a few times. Wonderful stuff. But let me ask you this, going back to the tour preparation, has your approach in terms of being a frontman and singing changed since the Fahrenheit tour?
A great deal. I mean, I was young. I was of course incredibly happy to be a part of that group. I mean, that was a wonderful thing that happened. I was close friends with everybody and got even closer, especially with Dave, who I wasn't really friends with before, but we got real close. He was generous and invited me up to write songs and taught me so much about singing in the studio and all of that kind of thing. Um, but in terms of like how I prepare or what I do as a singer, in those days compared to now, I just didn't do much back in those days. Where really, if you want to sustain your voice or strong voice over the course of a tour, where you're doing back-to-back shows and throwing on top of that, like something like bus travel, even though it's a comfortable bus, it's still dry air. You're not getting as much sleep as you normally do. And, I learned later, of course, and that rest is key for to keeping your voice strong. Obviously to keep it hydrated. But what I didn't take seriously back in those days was, seeking out some instruction. It's as simple as that, vocal coaching, vocal teaching. And when I came back in 2010, the first thing I did before we even started rehearsals was start working with a teacher. It was a different. I knew from the past what it was like on these tours, and I figured I better go in and really, do what this guy tells me to do and see if it's possible. And so he kind of he it was great. He started by telling me what I was doing that was right, and of course things I was doing wrong. Gave me a great education on the anatomy of your voice and your throat and your neck and all those muscles. And then, lots of different exercises. I have like 3 years recorded of various exercises for various different things. And the importance of warming up and the importance of not hanging out after the show and not speaking in a loud tone of voice if you can keep your voice down to about right here, when you're speaking to people. So, you don't want to go out to places where you have to talk over the music or talk over people or that kind of thing. It's just wear and tear. It's wear and tear on your voice. And so I just took it more seriously that way, and foregoed the sightseeing and the tourist part of touring that sometimes occurs, and I just gave that up for just staying in my room and staying quiet and trying to get some sleep on the bus and just doing whatever I could to make sure that I'm strong. That's important now and has been for the last 16 years that
Yeah,
that my performances are consistent.
like I mentioned, I've seen you guys maybe hundreds of times, a lot, since 1999. And one thing that I've noticed about you is that night after night, you bring it. You're always consistent. You're always hitting it, and that's something which a working musician could appreciate, but a fan maybe not as much because it does take a lot out of you. And I've gone to a bunch of Toto shows where I've met the band afterwards, and I think I saw you once or twice, but I would never imagine a lead singer be able to meet with fans after a show because the show is so draining and you have to save it for the next show.
You do. I mean, listen, there are gonna be shows and there's gonna be venues and there's gonna be towns that you play in where it's you just can't get away with not, hanging for a few minutes, whether it's with family or whether it's with promoters or record execs. Sometimes you have to show. You have to and I just try and keep it short if that happens. And like I said, try and explain. Look, I don't want to talk too loudly, so maybe can we go over in this side of the room, that kind of thing. And then you want to be generous to take pictures with people and that kind of stuff, which we all do. But I'm conscious of just like, I don't want to get in too close, too in the face of other people and lots of handshaking and touching and that kind of stuff, just because the number one enemy of a singer on the road is getting sick in any way.
Getting sick. Sure.
So
That makes
yeah, so,
perfect sense.
so I just sort of explain it, and people understand. They get it. They understand that we want to do our best possible show that we can do, and it means that Joe's got to go to bed.
And there are a lot of great Toto live album examples with your vocals. You guys do a great job of capturing the band. And one of the things I saw, I think it was last week, because I got this online and I have a CD of it somewhere. I have the Jay Graydon All Star Live in Japan CD. And of course, you were there with Bill Cantos and Bill Champlin as singers. I think there were three background singers, including Tamara Champlin. But man, the performance was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Just seeing you back, I guess it was maybe 89. It was after
No,
the
it
seventh
was.
one.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was well after the. I did two tours with Jay with that group, and it was Champlin, me, it was Sherwood Ball.
Sure, Ball.
Pat Mastelotto on drums the first time we went out. Of course, Jay, and then we had this wonderful bass player Kenji Sano, who was in the band Kalapana, and Steve Porcaro came with us a few of those times.
Yeah.
94 was the first one. 96 was the second one.
Oh, okay. Wow. Wow. So It's more recent than I thought it was. And then, of course, as we mentioned, the album you did with Peter and Bill Champlin, the three albums and one EP, where you were flexing your writing muscles and your production muscles. I want to skip the forward, if it's okay with you, to talk about some of the songs that you worked on.
Sure.
And I want to start with um, an album which made Something Else Reviews Best of 2021 list, which was Dennis and Tennant. Could you talk a little bit about the song "Never Saw You Coming"?
Sure. Yeah, that was that was always sort of in my mind going to be kind of like the lead track. I just had so much fun, shaping and working on that thing like a sculpture and stuff. And I loved the idea of having something that was funky and had a little sense of humor to it that was about death. Was basically the idea of the lyrics. And then I made a video, a little homemade video, that was silly and very psychedelic. The idea being that, this is perhaps maybe one of the things you see on your way out, that kind of thing. And then your life flashing before you. So I had some images of when I was a baby and my kids when they were babies and so on and so forth. So that was sort of the idea behind the lyric and the song. And I put it in something that was just kind of a groove tune, but also had a little bit of sense of humor in there somewhere, that kind of thing. I had the tremendous Michael Landau playing guitars on that whole thing, and
God, yes.
his parts are completely him, and he's one of those guitar players. Luke is the same way too, where you don't need to say anything. You can give those guys a chart, and they'll do what you want them to do. But you can also just let them sit with the tune for a day, and then they come back with just some remarkable rhythm stuff, and of course solos and that kind of thing. The origin of the song started with a little piece of it that was a demo I started with my friend Barry Bregman, who was my manager back in the old days, and he comes from a musical family, and so we co-wrote this little thing. So he's credited as a songwriter on the song. In 2020, during sort of the meat of the COVID period, is where I was really concentrated and focused on getting the record finished. Where what you hear, it really came to life. It was all in the box, with the exception of Lenny Castro and Mike Landau, of course, on that particular song. Yeah, and my daughters sang some backgrounds.
Of course, I have to mention too the wonderful vocal performance on the Peter Gabriel song. Oh my God, that's that'll give you chills. That's goosebumps there.
Thanks. Yeah,
So
that's my daughter Hannah, who is incredible. She's got scary pitch and just really gifted in that way. Both my girls. I got two daughters, and both of them.
okay,
My younger one, Ray, is a songwriter, and she's gigging around. That's her life. Hannah is a mom now. She got three kids. I got three grandchildren. But both incredible singers and musicians. My daughter Ray is a accomplished guitar player now and does gigs all over the world, in London and all over the U.S. So yeah, I'm grateful to and blessed to have them around. But yeah, Hannah on that record, on that song, I thought it might be fun to give it a shot, and she nailed it.
yeah, fantastic. And I'm going to jump around chronologically a little bit, but I
Sure.
want to talk about. Well, I have the Joseph Williams album, which came back out in 1982, I believe. I have it on a record somewhere. And I also have I've seen or heard demos of the song "What You've Been Missing," which appeared on Chicago 16. But I don't think it's on any of your solo albums, is it?
I thought it was
Which
on that first one, but maybe my
maybe
memory is
I have to look it
failing
up
me.
then.
Failing me, but yeah, I think it was on that record
Oh,
also.
okay,
That
okay,
was the
okay.
that was the first song I wrote with Jay Gruska, who was my producer on that album, excuse me.
Hmm.
And then later married my sister, so he was father of my nephews and still great friend. Yeah, so that was the first time we got together and wrote a song. was What You're Missing. And at the time, I was working with a publishing company. In those days, it was like kind of like the old school scene where you would, be under contract and you'd write, 12 or 15 songs in a year or whatever, and they would push them and try to get, artists to cover them. And that was one of the ones Peter Cetera, picked. Or actually, the band that Peter did one of my songs later on, years later. But yeah, that was on the Chicago 16 album.
Yeah, wonderful song. All right, I'm going to jump ahead quite a distance ahead to Toto 20, Toto XX. And the lead off song of the album is Going Home, which you co-wrote with David Page.
Right.
On Toto 20, Bobby Kimball sings the lead. Um, Tell me about that song, and was it considered for maybe the seventh one or the Fahrenheit era?
Well, it was written in that period of time. I left after that, 89, 88, 89, and they moved on. But I was back in 98. There were several
Mhm.
times when I was back before 2010. One of the sayings in this band is once in, never out. So, and I've said before, I'm pals with the guys in the band. So we may have parted ways, and there may have been some issues back after the seventh one record, but we always really remained friends and played on each other's projects and that kind of thing. So in '98, they had me and Bobby together back for a tour. And the Toto 20 album was meant to be songs that were never finished, songs that were written and never finished. And of the singers that were in the band, Bobby and I were the only ones represented there. There was a few that he was going to do, a few that I was going to do. There is a version of me singing "Going Home." But then, then they got hired Bobby back. I was in the middle of doing a television stuff and, in a career there. And Bobby was in peak form, so they brought him back, and it just made sense for him to try and sing that song, which he did great.
Yeah, and I know it's captured live on one of the Toto live albums. I don't remember which one, where you sing it as well, and it's a fantastic song. It's just hard to believe that song never made it on an album before Toto 20. It was so good.
Well, it would have been on the eighth one. You know what I mean? Had I stayed in the band, that
Oh, okay.
there were several tunes that would have, shown up on another record had I stayed. But they
Mhm.
uh, they were kind of put aside, and then we brought a few of them out for that 20th anniversary record.
Yeah, great. So I'm going to jump forward to, actually, I'm jumping back. I'm not sure which direction, to Fahrenheit. And
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you about We Can Make It Tonight.
Yeah. Well, We Can Make It Tonight was again a little demo piece that I started with Barry Bregman, my friend and co-manager, and we started that piece, and I had a demo of it, and I brought it into the guys. That was like in one of our first meetings when I was joining the band. They wanted to see what material did I have to maybe contribute to the record. And they all heard it and really dug the tune. And then we sort of pulled it apart and started from scratch with the Toto guys. You know what I mean? And I think I'm trying to remember I think my brother was a little bit of a contributor on that song, and maybe Jeff also.
Okay.
But yeah, it morphed a little bit into what you hear in the Toto record. But that was like the very first compositional piece I brought into the group to offer.
Mhm. So did you also have 1,000 years mostly completed with Mark A. Williams?
Mark T.
Mark
Williams.
T. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Mark, my brother, who's a drummer, was Air Supply's drummer for a lot of years, and also a great writer. And he had this demo that was basically just the music, the changes of 1,000 years. And I took it and came up with some melodies and some words and finished that demo. Brought it to the guys. They loved it, thought it was cool. The guys were always fans of my brother. Luke played with him in a band when they were kids, and
Mhm.
my dad was a student of Joe Porcaro's, Jeff's dad. And so they loved the tune, and I think there was a few little fixes or changes here and there that where I think David or Jeff became a co-writer somehow. I think maybe there's three of us credited on that song, but it started with my brother.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful song. So a few more to ask you about. I'm going to jump to Toto 14, which I mentioned earlier, the song Fortune.
Hmm.
Tell me about that one. I
Fortune
think
was
you,
a song from Soup to Nuts that I wrote and just, demoed in my little home studio, and then we just peeled it apart and added the guys in the band on it. It was just one of those ones I played it for Dave and Luke, and they were like, "Yeah, this could be cool. This would work great." So that was just something of mine that was
yeah.
actually specifically started and wrote for that project. So
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm going to go to Old is New.
Okay.
And you had a role as supervising producer. You're involved with a lot of the writing, obviously, most of the writing of that album and the production, also the little keyboards on the album, I believe. Um, could you talk a little bit about the role as a supervising producer for that project?
Yeah, I mean, really, what that meant is that I was kind of the lead engineer. One of the skills I picked up when I was composing for TV, I chose not to have an assistant, so I had to learn how to do everything myself and learn, a little bit about engineering. Believe me, I don't count myself among the great, record engineers of the music business, but I learned enough to be able to, mix and record my own score stuff, and it carried over. And so, at one point I was, kind of running David's studio a little bit, and so everybody was that was the hub, and everybody was coming up there, and I was the one recording everything, and then in charge of the vocals and making sure that everything was recorded and sung correctly or whatever, and really just maybe the um, just rallied everybody together when we needed to get work done. So that's really, so supervising means that, sort of just corralling all of the kittens into the corral, and then recording and engineering it, and that was really what my role was.
Yeah, the album sounds wonderful, especially given the fact there were some songs which dated back quite some time. For example, the song Devil's Tower featured the great David Hungate on bass, and of course, Jeff Porcaro on drums. And is one of my favorite live Toto songs, one of my favorite Toto songs, period. Could you talk a little bit about Devil's Tower, how you guys wrote that, and then you compiled all those pieces together?
Well, it was a piece that was like in the vault. It was one of the we that was part of the plan for that record was to go back and listen to once again, like the 20th anniversary album, like some pieces that were started and never finished. Most of them that came back from that time were kind of unfinished or had some, we're close to being finished, that kind of thing. And we listened to tons of them and just came across the ones that we thought we could work with the best. And Devil's Tower was definitely one of those. And then once we got the track and baked the tapes and digitized everything from the old days from those guys. We all got together as all four of us, Dave and Steve Porcaro and Luke and myself, and just finished those tunes, lyrics and melodies, and then just recorded them.
So when I talked to Steve Lukather about, it was probably 3 years ago now, because we talked about his last solo album, he mentioned the focus of the band Toto right now. Are you anticipating any new solo products? Because Dennis and Tennant's been out a while. It was a brilliant album. Any solo work coming from Joseph Williams anytime soon?
Maybe, right now I'm not really concentrating on that as much as, I mean, because of the touring that we're doing. We've been doing a lot of touring, and I mean, I don't take forever to make an album, but like COVID was perfect because there was nothing to do. We couldn't
Mhm.
tour. And so it was the perfect stretch of, like, 6, 8 months, in a row where I could really concentrate on it. And I had some pieces already going, bits and pieces from a couple of years previous. So, that process will start again. There'll definitely be some new stuff. I can't tell you exactly when. Right now, at least through the end of our tour for the 50th anniversary, which starts next year. Perhaps when we sort of take a little breather, after that, after that'll be like 18 years we've been back at it on the road steady, since 2010. I'll probably start working on something else. And we Luke and Dave and I have talked about maybe a track or two or something like that to put out there that would be new material to just sort of help promote the 50th anniversary tour, that kind of thing. But in terms of like making Toto records, I'm not. I think basically if you want to hear a new Toto record, you just take Dave's record, Luke's record, my record, Steve Porcaro's record, throw them together, and then you've got a Toto album. I think
Okay, so that's what Lukather told me too. And my response to him was, I don't want that. I like the Joseph Williams album. I like the Steve Lukather album. I love a David Page album. I think they sound, of course, it sounds has
well,
touches of Toto, but it's
we're all playing on each other's records. That's the funny thing. So, but it's just not under the moniker of Toto. If we had not released those albums, but plucked a couple of songs off of each one of them and put it in a package and called it Toto, it would have been fine. It would have been worked just right. But I mean, so far there's no plans. I mean, the record business, especially for a band from back in the day and stuff like that, they're really vanity projects at this point. You know what I mean? It's not like I made the Dennis and Tennant record to top the charts or anything like that. I didn't think that, and who knows, anything can happen. But that's not really what was on my mind. I just wanted to get this out of my system, and I also wanted to put my self to you to to be of some use. You know what I mean? And maybe just contribute to the whole business in general, that kind of thing. So if thinking about it that way, yes, there's always a chance for new music. Never say never. Musicians
my
don't musicians don't retire; they just drop. My father is 94 years old, and he just finished another Spielberg film.
amazing. The
Yeah.
thing is, an album as good as Dennis and Tennant should, I think for a Toto fan, you have to have it. I mean, I can't imagine a Toto fan, person calls him a fan, not owning that album. Um, and another thing is, if you haven't seen Toto live recently, every tour is different. There's a different take, a new songs you haven't heard in a long time or maybe never heard. So if you haven't seen Toto in a while, go see them. And getting back to the tour, going full circle since we're near the end, by the time this podcast goes up, you guys will be on the road already.
Mhm.
You have a replacement for Greg Filling Games.
Yeah, we sort of we're holding off on sort of talking about that, but I think it is a known thing that Greg has moved on. He's got two 10-year-old twins, or maybe they're 11 by now, I'm not sure. And so he wants to have the do more family hanging than he does want to be on the road. Our schedule varies, when we go out there and stuff like that. And people need to sort of be available, that kind of thing. We try to keep everybody working as much as possible. But and it's understandable. Greg's got little kids and he wants to be home for them and not away so much. So that was his decision. And very soon you'll be hearing more in more detail about where we've gone and what's coming and what's happening next.
Well, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the tour. Love Toto, and you guys, you're fine wine. This age, you get better and you get better and better. The live shows are amazing. A lot of that's because of Joseph Williams's vocals. Joseph, is there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Just I'm so glad that you had me here today. It was a lot of fun talking about all this stuff. I hope to see folks come out and see our show. It's going to be a lot of fun. This first run is an evening with us, so it's a lot of humor, a lot of great musicianship, and of course hit songs that everybody loves to play and everybody loves to hear. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. I just encourage anybody who may be listening to your podcast who are looking for something to do, it would be a good thing. And then, we've got the 50th anniversary coming up next year, which is we're planning a big a big year that year. So it's been an incredible ride, and we're so blessed to be able to still be on it at this point, at this time in life or whatever, and everybody's still healthy and knock on wood. So that we get to come out there and do this with you guys. It's more than I could have hoped for. So I hope to see
Yeah.
you all out there. That's my note.
We're very fortunate to have Toto on the road. And Joseph, thank you again for your time. I appreciate you.
My
I'm going
pleasure.
to turn this off. Thank you, sir. And I will see you on the road. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy. Thank you.
Fine, absolutely. I appreciate this from you. I really do.
Yeah. Take care.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.